Okay, so you decided state auditor. Why that position?
Well, when the governor made her announcement a couple of weeks ago, I started, thinking about where my experience and my background can best continue to serve Iowans. And I looked at the auditor's position, and it's something that, it roots out taxpayer abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse. And we've done a lot, as a school board member and as a state senator, and now as the lieutenant governor. There's a lot of focus on making government more efficient and effective. And over the last several years, we've done a lot of tax cuts in Iowa that I've really, kind of helped lead the charge on not only eliminating inheritance and retirement tax, income tax, but also lowering the income tax to 3.8% flat tax, and also looking at how we can lessen the property tax burden for Iowans. But in order to sustain those tax cuts and continue making tax cuts, we have to make government more efficient and effective to make those tax cuts more sustainable. So it's something that I've really enjoyed during my public service, both on the school board, Senate, and now as lieutenant governor. And I decided that's really the direction that I want to head as I continue public service in Iowa.
You were a heartbeat away, as they say, from governor. So people were asking me, why is she not running for governor? So why are you not running for governor?
Well, again, I just go back to, where my passions lie and what I've really enjoyed during my time in public service. I have a technology background. I worked in the corporate America. I've had a small business for 27 years. The work that we've done over the last 6 years at the state level in terms of government efficiency, the governor's realignment bill that's really, downsized government, made things so much more effective, and really, putting the taxpayer first. Those are things that I've worked on during my service that I really just enjoy, and that's just the direction I decided to go. And I think the auditor position is a good fit for my background and experience and where my interests are: protecting the taxpayer and rooting out fraud, and then also just finding those efficiencies, like how we can leverage technology to make the government just run more effectively and deliver better services to Iowans. And the governor's really led on that issue. When she brought me on, she really touted my experience in the technology sector, what we can do with the Doge task force, and how we can leverage AI. That's something that's really being used a lot, especially in the financial sector. And I think that's something that I can bring into the auditor's office, and what comes out of the Doge task force that the governor created will have a home in the auditor's office, and we can spread that across, not just through state departments, but also to local governments as well. I'd really like to work with the local governments to help them implement some of those best practices to be more efficient and be better stewards of the taxpayer dollar.
This isn't a good slogan, I suppose, but would you see your mission as state auditor as kind of doji? Like, is
Yeah,
that
I
the
mean,
mentality?
Doge stands for the Department of Government Efficiency. And so, really focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what we should be doing. I've been really proud of the fact that Iowa has a balanced budget. We have a surplus that's healthy. We're going in the right direction by cutting taxes and continuing to look for ways to lessen the tax burden on Iowans, and while delivering better services. But in order to sustain a balanced budget and sustain that surplus and sustain tax cuts, the state auditor really is the front line of rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. So it's a really important position, and I'm really excited to get to work and work on the behalf of the taxpayers of the state.
Is there anything you've learned as state auditor, I'm sorry, as state senator or a lieutenant governor about how you view the state auditor position, and would that change in any way? Is there something that maybe that office is not doing that you would want to do?
Yeah, well, something that's troubling to me is that the state auditor, the current holder of that office, really seems to put politics, inject politics and partisan issues into the office. And really, it should be focused on the taxpayer, not the politics, or not using it to, fuel your political ambition. So, I intend to get in there and put the taxpayer and people over the politics, and really focus on what needs to be done to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, and help state and local government entities, run more effectively and efficiently. So, I really, I think it's troubling that there's been politics injected in the office, and I intend to remove that when I take office.
As you know, the current state auditor would say that Republicans politicized this by limiting some of his investigatory powers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was in the Senate when those bills went through, and we need to make sure that there's guardrails to protect the rights and privacy of Iowa citizens. And when an auditor is going to conduct an audit, there needs to be a letter of engagement that clearly defines the time frame of the audit and the scope of the audit. And when the auditor starts to get political and partisan, and start collecting information that's not relevant to the scope of the audit, I think that's a real problem. So I think making sure that we're protecting the rights and privacy of Iowans when these audits are being conducted, I think was the right thing to do.
What does it mean to you that the governor immediately expressed her support for your new campaign?
Well, it's a real honor. I mean, it was an honor when she selected me to be her lieutenant governor and trusted me with this position. So, something that she, I think, has always touted about me is my background in education, and the work that I did in the Iowa Senate. And for her to, entrust my abilities on, this position, she knows that I have a passion for technology and really, running government more like a business, and rooting out that waste, fraud, and abuse, but also, looking for efficiencies and really kind of helping local and state governments, implement those changes that can help them run more lean. I think that, she's really touted my business experience, my technology experience, and I think those are more things that I think we should bring to government, running it more like a business and be more efficient that way.